This week, I'm joined by Daniela Gerhard. Daniela is Director of Training and Business Development with Barnum Financial Group. She's also a professional coach and mentor who works with many financial professionals throughout the year. Daniela shares her insights as to the challenges that financial advisors and professionals face each day. I'm Paul Blanco, and this is Small Steps, Big Wins. All right, Daniela Gerhard, welcome to Small Steps, Big Wins. I'm so happy to have you on the show today. And, as I was thinking about bringing you on, I thought about all the seats that you've sat in your career and the impact you've made on so many lives. So thank you for being on today. And, your listeners are in for a great treat today.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. I'm honored to be here.
Same thing. I am honored to have you on. So let's start from the beginning. So why don't you tell us how you got in the industry and kind of walk us through all the different things that you've done to get you to where you are today?
Absolutely. Yes. So I started back in 2005 as a financial advisor. So I can't believe it's been 19 years. And I don't know where the math is because I'm only 25. So I'm not too sure where the 19 years came from, but here we are. And so
you still look like you're 25.
Oh, thank you. I will take that. 2005, an advisor for about 4 years, learned so much, I got all my licenses. I made sure I still keep those. I still do my CEs every year, right? Because it's important to me to keep that. I was lucky enough to work with several successful financial advisors. So I was able to learn and just pick their brains and then kind of make it my own. Then from there had such a deep appreciation, of course, for the firm, the culture and everything that Barnum is part of and the industry, but just financial advising wasn't for me. Not being that front client facing person wasn't for me. So I was fortunate that I was working with a mentor at the time. And he said, I don't even know if you want to do this, but I need somebody to help on the internal side of the business. I said, sure. Let's try this out. And so I learned every aspect of the internal side, right? I already was a financial advisor, so I knew a lot that had gone into that. And before I knew it, we grew the team to about 20 people. So I became, I sat in so many administrative roles, and then I became a practice manager. And that's where I feel like I really flourished at that time because I had my hands into so much. I learned the ins and outs of a team.
Yeah. So now you had the front end and now you got the back end.
Correct. And I saw the ups and the downs. I saw the volatility. I saw what makes a team a top team. I also learned and saw what are some of the things that need improvement in order to continue to be a top team, and some changes that need to be made both on the tactical side, right? So when you think about, what a team is all about, it's culture and our values aligned and the internal processes. Are we efficient in what we're doing? Are we developing our people? Are we having constructive conversations to help empower them? And then also on the client side, do we have a robust and clear client service model and the way we onboard clients? So I was so lucky that I had my hands and involved in managing all aspects of that. And so I learned a lot. And then fast forward to came back on the agency front at Barnum, of course. And I learned the training and development, of course, side, which went hand in hand, right? Because I had all this background and now, and then here I am today where I feel like I'm really thriving and in the seat that I need to be and should be in, which is coaching advisors and advisor teams and bringing all that experience and that knowledge, and then learning from all of them, right? And so that I can share in those best practices with each other.
Yeah, I always tell the story of the tree story, right? I could sit on the bottom or the top, but someone that sits on the tree next to me, if an advisor sits on the tree, they have to sit on a branch and they see the person above them, below them, to the right and the left, but they don't see everyone.
Yeah.
You now as a coach working with so many people, you're seeing what everyone does, and you're able to take some of that and help other advisors with some best practices that you saw somewhere else.
Absolutely.
Not only from what you've learned.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you have a major advantage when you do that.
Absolutely.
So, you're coaching so many teams and so many advisors now, and every single one of them share the impact you're making on their practice. So you're not just doing their job, you're really making a major impact. And I know that's super important to you. But what are some of the things you're seeing from them today?
Yes, definitely. And so much. And I like to bring it down into two main overarching themes. One is I have this want and desire need to be an advisor and a practitioner and being client facing. Then there's this other part of my role, which is I need to be a business owner. And those are two very different skill sets, different competencies, different skill sets. Some advisors want to do one versus the other, right? Most want to be just that advisor. But it's really a package deal.
It is.
So how do you either one, partner up with someone or either join a team or create a team that has the other skill sets so that each person is really thriving in what they could be doing so that they grow. So everybody grows in the right direction, in the same direction. So that's the really overarching theme. But then there's so many other, I would say, challenges or just items that they need to navigate. So one is understanding on, starting with the client acquisition side, right? Am I working with the people that I want to work with? Am I working with the people that I'm making the most impact? So is it my ideal client? And how to understand the, that side. Then it's how do I manage my time, which goes hand in hand with that. How do I manage my time and my energy? So how do I look at where I'm investing, whether it's with clients or in different marketing initiatives, but where am I spending my time and my energy so that I'm thriving and I'm utilizing my strengths in the fullest capacity and my full potential. So that's another one I'm seeing. Then it's, hey, I'm joining or I need support. So I either would like to bring in a junior associate or another advisor because I notice that I can't grow if I don't have another person that's either helping us provide revenue or producing and so they will many times talk about how to hire, whether that's a salary or that's an advisor coming in and what makes sense for their specific practice. The next part is, well, what do splits and expenses look like, right? So you could see it's so many different categories. And each one is not cookie cutter. No. And which is part of what I really love. Because, coming into this, I said to myself, one of my goals was I really need to make a playbook of what are all and standardized templates, if you will. But what I notice I do is I pull those standardized templates and then I customize them, meaning on what it is which I love because you're really making it fit. You're not making the advisor of the team fit the process. You're making the process fit the advisor and the team, which I think is really important. It's not a square peg in a round hole. Correct. It's a round peg in a round hole. Yeah, everything. I hear often, well, what is this team doing or what are they doing? And I always love to say, well, what is it that you want to accomplish? Let's start there. I can absolutely share what this team and that team is doing, of course, just to give you some perspective. But ultimately, it's going to be what is going to be the best for you and your team. Well, and it's interesting too, last week I was able to share at our top producer event, basically our top 50 have done 3 times the amount of business that they did in just 4 short years. Wow. And I would say all the stuff you just rattled off, most of those people are working with you. Mm-hmm. And, what I've been teaching and I've said to them now is they don't need to have a revolution. It's evolution now. Yeah. And it's really that game of inches and you're giving them feet at a point in their career when they need it. Mm-hmm. So let me ask this one. When you're doing all this and you're going through all those different steps, do you have a hard time with them getting their vision on paper? It's funny that you say that. Sometimes it is. And sometimes, some advisors literally rattle off and sometimes what their vision is. And sometimes the vision is very metrics driven. I was going to say numeric. Very numeric. And what I try to do, Paul, is I try to pull give me the color behind it. Like, give me, let's fast forward 10, 15, 20 years, whatever. What do you want to be able to say? If today is 10 years from now, yep. What do you want to be able to say that you've accomplished, that you've done, and for who and why, right? So I try to ask probing, impactful questions to pull that out of them rather than saying, hey, I want to be at X amount of AUM, or that's great. Of course, we want that to be part of the vision. Yep. But really is understanding like what that legacy in and who's the person that you want to be, and how do you want people to perceive you as this practitioner, but also as a person as a whole.
Yeah, I think really awesome. What are some of the things that you see that's very common? Like, I would assume that hiring staff or adding advisors to team come with a lot of complexity, as an example.
Yes, sure.
Does that come with, like, is that harder to get them to understand that?
Definitely. I've had, which I love, of course, these conversations. I think I find I've noticed the more complex the conversations, the more I like them, which is bizarre, but
which is great.
Right. I've had a handful of conversations recently because we're coming up until the end of the year. So now it's kind of review time, and how do I have this conversation with my staff? So let me going ahead here, but one is hiring the right person. So luckily, of course, we have the resources here at Barnum that can help with that. But it's not only the hiring, it's the development and of course, there's so many resources that we have here, but then ultimately it's how do you develop this person for your team and keep this person engaged, or keep these people engaged and empowered and understand like what their strengths are and pull out those. Like, your job is to pull out their strengths and utilize them fully.
But let's pause there for a second. You said something early on. It was one of your first statements. And I like to use the construction industry. I've had more interactions with them in building homes, let's say, and doing renovations. Mm-hmm. And I find that many of the craftsmen I worked with are so great at their craft. Like, you look at this patio and you say, oh my God. But the way they ran the business, like their follow through, they didn't get back to you. They didn't, the quote never came. And it's back to what you said earlier. If you're a great advisor, I think the only way you really get to that exponential growth is you have to become a great leader / CEO. Mm-hmm. So when you do the staff thing, like what you're using an example of, you're bringing on a new person. Do you find some of the teams are challenges because they haven't made that shift yet from the advisor to the CEO?
Yeah, it's a different, skill set, right? And it's sometimes it takes patience, right? Which, we run really fast in this industry. So being able to tell an advisor that, hey, you need to slow down here in this particular part of the practice because we're not dealing with robots, you're dealing with people. Yep. You're dealing with people betterment and engagement, and which is important in order. I forget exactly what the statistic is, but I was being a fact finder by just nature, I enjoy research and statistics and information. Of course, I can't get enough of it. And I was just looking up the difference between motivated, whether it's employees or part of your team members, and against productivity, and if they're happy and if they feel connected to their leader, like what the increase in productivity, the increase in happiness, the increase in what that portrays into a client experience. Because imagine if I'm happy, if I'm an employee of a team and I'm happy and I'm thriving and I'm living in my strengths and I'm having I have a good connection with my advisors, then more than likely, I'm going to translate that into my client facing when I talk to the clients, right? So ultimately we 100%. Want to deliver a client experience, but that takes a skill,
no doubt,
to develop that. And so it was funny. I was talking to one team the other day, and again, we're coming up to reviews, which is part of this, and they're dreading it, right? They're like, oh, right. And they said, we've never done these before. Now we remember why we've never done these before, right? And so we were talking through, I said, let's kind of just role play. Like, what would you say? And they went through, and I said, oh, geez,
don't say that.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I said, oh, geez. Okay, let's clear the rest of our days. This is like a red flag here. No. But I said, and again, I always go back to let me ask let me ask more impactful questions. Like, why do you even want to do a performance review? Let me understand from them. And they shared, I said, okay, so you care about your people, right? That's beautiful because that's foundation, right? Yep. You want them to thrive. You believe that they're the right people. Okay. So we have all the great qualities right there. Okay. Now we just have to work on how do I communicate this and empower and engage. So after role playing a little bit, they felt really confident, but it was funny because they said, can you just do this for us?
Yeah, and I knew you were going to say that.
And at that moment, Paul, I said, "Oh, that might be a good one, add to the, later on we could add that to the bucket." But
no, because they would never build that relationship,
that connection,
and that they won't have each other's back the way they would if they
correct.
And by the way, you can deliver a hard message and the person can still walk out super excited
and still feel empowered. Right.
And I find that employees or teammates, they want to know where they stand positively or negatively.
Exactly.
And if it's negative or positive, then what are the things they have to do to continue to grow? Mm-hmm. And if you can do that, people will work really hard for you and your team and their own selves,
Yes, exactly. And that's what I try to, but I feel like there is a shift in teams and advisors are going that direction, which is really awesome. And it's really great to see that. So now it's, again, tweaking those skills and those competencies, or hiring somebody to do that, right? Go back to like being a practice manager, right? So, the team I was working with, that's one thing, they didn't want to do that. And so they, luckily, but not every team could do that. Not every team could hire somebody.
Well, and also as a practice manager, that person has to have those skills.
Correct.
Too. So you have to, if you're going to delegate that, you're going to have to delegate that and get that person skilled up. I learned something as a CEO very early in my career. Thank God. Someone said this to me. I was really struggling. I was delegating, you're a CEO, get the right people and then delegate stuff out and manage it though. And you can't just walk away. It's not like, they're just going to be you in a minute. Mm-hmm. But then someone said to me, there's you only things. And I have, a couple of things that that I can't delegate. Yep. They're mine. Mm-hmm. So maybe performance reviews for some teams should be the leader of the team. And if it's the practice manager, then you have to develop the skill sets. Yeah. It's pretty interesting what you said earlier, though. 2 of the teams that you work with spoke on a platform, on a panel last week, and 2 partners, 1 team, and they asked, like, how do you make decisions and everything? And the one person said, I don't make any decisions. Yeah. This person, and he's more junior. Yeah. Said he makes them all. So he's taken the seat as the leader of the team. Mm-hmm. And even though they work on things together, but I was thinking about you when they said it, because I'm sure that you worked through that with the team and said, all right, now you're in charge of this, So I thought that was really awesome.
Awesome. Yeah, absolutely. And it's helping, again, those strengths. And a lot of it comes naturally, right? I understand that I'm not good at this. I don't want to be good at this. And it's okay because I have a partner or a team member that can, take and help grow us to the next level. So I think that's important when you do have a team and with complementary skill sets. So this way, again, you're living in your zone of here are my strengths. Here's where I do naturally really well. Yes, I'm going to build competencies and skills and enhance those skills, but I actually enjoy that part.
Well, yeah, you shouldn't. I learned this early on too, like work on your strengths and try to hire for your weaknesses.
Yes. Yep.
Right.
Perfect.
And have enough knowledge to be dangerous, but don't try to gain a skill that probably you might not ever get.
Yeah.
So, well, when you think of challenges, like let's talk about mental challenges.
Yeah.
Like, are you seeing that where they come in and they're like, oh my God, I'm so happy to meet today because I'm exhausted. I'm running through this and I'm struggling with this. And, what are some of those things that they're running into today?
Absolutely. Yes, definitely. The more and more, I think, trust that I build with each person, the more open and vulnerable. And I think that's one of my goals is to so that there's no, wall up. Like in order for us to talk candidly, it is being vulnerable and,
Sure.
and open and being okay with, hey, listen, I'm struggling with XYZ. I think I have a solution, but I just need to talk, sometimes I just need to talk through it. Sometimes just talking through it and, them hearing their own voice. I mean, I know that helps me, right? Sometimes hearing your own voice and kind of talking through it. And 2 is the accountability piece. That's a big one, right?
Yep.
Like I have this issue, I have to make a decision. I just want to talk through if I'm thinking about it. Okay. Yeah. So I enjoy those conversations too, because they're not black and white. They're very gray.
Well, and I think to your point, for the people that are listening now, if you're driving, when you get back, stop and listen to this part, because I think it's important that you have a coach.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they can come and be who they are to you.
Yeah.
And as a business owner, I think of myself, and if my wife wasn't in the business, which she was, I didn't really have a lot of people to talk to about the problems I have. Like I could talk to her if she was not a non-working in this business spouse, but because she had the knowledge, it at least made some of those lonely days not as lonely.
Mm-hmm.
But for the people that are listening today, if you don't have someone like Daniela that you're working with, find that person and be really transparent on what you're working through. Mm-hmm. You don't have to sugarcoat it.
Yeah.
And I remember I hired a financial advisor probably 20 years ago. And I remember being in some sort of workshop, and Tiger Woods was at his peak and he was crushing everyone. And he had the best golfer in the world. He had 3 coaches. And I'm thinking, because I'm in the financial service industry, I can manage all my finances. Mm-hmm. And I was like, so wrong. And like, I heard that and I'm like, all right, I'm hiring an advisor like tomorrow.
Yeah.
So do that. If you're an advisor, make sure you get those people. But
and help you just, grow in the direction that you want to grow. A lot of times what I hear is, as an advisor, they're so busy acquiring clients and making sure clients are happy and making sure they're up to date with the technology to use with clients as well as products and services, making sure that they understand them in and out and know when to. So they're so focused on that sometimes these part of being a business owner gets put behind. It's not a priority. And so when you have a systematic meeting or a systematic time that you're able to do, whether it's a mentor, a coach, your manager, making sure you have a significant other, making sure you have that outlet that you could, and that really cares about your well-being and your growth, and will have hard conversations with you to push you to be your best. I think that's the important piece.
Yeah. So another question I have is, when I look at Barnum, there is a lot of resources here. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of things to help people grow their practice, but those tools are only as good as you utilize them.
Yeah.
So do you find are the people you're coaching, because it's voluntary, it's not like they're forced to do this, are they all super curious, and are they all figuring out how to, when something new comes out, are they looking at it and saying, hey, how does this help me? Mm-hmm. Or do they also think like, this is hard for me and I tried to teach this, but if I'm working with a company that has a product or something, I'm always thinking, why did they build this? And how do you use it?
Yeah.
Or this tool? How are you helping them to stay curious and make sure they're executing on some of the things that are new in the industry?
Yeah, absolutely. So great question. So the first part are most of them, as they learn, like just running head on and jumping with it. Some, I'll say. So some, because it needs to make sense in a fast way to them, how they could utilize it and move forward. So a lot of advisors are able to do that. And some, it takes some validity and getting used to, hey, what's that new, whether it's a technology or product or service, right? But to help them walk through it and figuring out when to approach it. I think the more I understand what their vision is, what they're trying to accomplish, but also understand their pain points and say, hey, you said that it was a pain point for you, that you're not, whatever it is, you're not the most efficient with technology. And that is hindering your growth. Here's a technology, here's a solution. that can help you here. So I think one part is to understand who they are, what they're trying to accomplish, and then again, bring those pieces and those resources in. And a lot is, because I'm meeting with them systematically, some every 2 weeks, some once a month, some once a quarter, depending on what they're working on, is making sure I have my list of items like, hey, here are the 5-6 things. And let's talk through. Oh, 1 and 2 doesn't work. Okay, how come? Let's talk through. Oh, okay, not right now, but okay, Q1, Q2, we're going to revisit this. Or part 1, 2 doesn't work at all for your practice right now. Okay, that's fine. Yep. But making sure that they're aware and at least take advantage of it. And they do. I mean, most of our advisors are very innovative and creative and want to be able to be efficient and effective. And if they're not the person to execute on that, they'll say, okay, so-and-so on my team, can we loop this person in to help them execute?
Well, it's interesting. I've been telling the story for 25 years, the 4-minute mile story.
Yeah.
And I think that, for those people that don't know, Ken Bannister was the first one to run it.
Yeah.
They said that physically you can never. So I think physical attributes are very different than the mental attributes that some people have. But they said you couldn't physically do it. He did it. Mm-hmm. I believe the story is 32 people did it in the next year.
Yeah.
So I feel like because there's a community of advisors here that are breaking records every day, that other people become fast followers, not following them, but following the tools that they're using. Does that make that easier for you to get them to be at least open-minded?
Absolutely. I mean, listen, I'll very much admit I use the lever. So team is using this and, in a playful way, of course, but I'll say, these teams and here's where they're finding success. Not saying that all of that will work for you because your practice is different, but I think we could take pieces of this initiative, or we could take pieces of this, or this is what they're doing. This is how often they're meeting with the resources here, whether it be the product specialist or, definitely, I think people want to be competitive. They have that competitive spirit, but also making sure that it's aligned with what they're trying to accomplish within their practice as their vision.
Well, let's talk about you a little bit. Yeah. I feel like, if you look at your journey, 19-year journey, you found your passion. And I'm a big believer. My favorite business book is Good to Great. And my favorite strategy on that is get the right people on the bus, then get them in the right seat. So now you're in the right seat. You're passionate about what you do and you're in the zone. I'm watching you continue to grow and it's just amazing to watch. So you should be super proud of yourself. I'm proud of you. What are the challenges you're running into today? And you're new, this is you've been doing this your whole career for the most part. Yeah. But it's the last 4 or 5 years this has became, your day to day.
Zoned in. Yeah.
What are the challenges you're running into?
Absolutely. So a few of them, and one of the things that I'm passionate about is that time and energy, right? So I constantly assess, where am I spending my time? Where am I spending my energy? Is it in line with what I'm trying to accomplish? So I don't know if I would say it's a challenge, but it's something that I navigate. I'm very conscious of navigating it.
Which is great.
2 is keeping, again, I don't know if it's a challenge. It's more of a navigation, keeping up with the changes that are happening in our industry, right? Whether it's technology and how to utilize them. I'm the type of person that need to get my hands on it, right? So we think about, even something as little as the Zoom AI. I'm like, all right, well, before I promote this, let me get my hands on it. Let me utilize it a little bit. And then I feel comfortable promoting something, right? And so I started to do that and build efficiencies around that. So going back to time and energy is making sure I am following a model week. So I make sure I spend time in my own development, right? So one of the things I want to try to do next year, which I tried last year, is attending one of the Forbes Shuck events and just taking it all in and then coming back, right? And saying, hey, here are the 4 things that I think could apply. So I also became, as you know, certified through the ICF, the International Coaching Federation. I got my tier 1 coaching certificate. So I want to go for my second. So just finding the time, not finding the time, but it's working on your craft. Yeah, I'm working on the craft.
Continue to work on it.
Right. And that's one thing that I share with many advisors too. It's you have to do it as like, oh, this checkbox. in order for you to grow, it's one of those milestones. And so that for me is making sure that I'm continuing to develop myself and being relevant in our industry and sharing, so those are probably two main things.
Yeah. And that's important. I think that's a big point because I remember telling the staff and the leadership team for years that we're teaching the advisors to be super curious and it's a learning culture. If you don't do that, in 3-5 years, they'll be so much more knowledgeable that you'll become obsolete. So I think that it's really critical that you continue to bring that energy to those things to continue to grow. And you're right. It's, when you think of being a complete person, a wife, a mom, and then obviously a leader, you have to find that time and you have to be super disciplined. And let's actually spend a little time on that word. Do you find, because you're challenging advisors to get stuff done, do you find that the ones that are more disciplined and they execute faster? Because execution is like a word that's used so much, but I think it takes great discipline to change. And I think people forget that you can't be a great executor if you're not disciplined enough to change. So
I couldn't agree more. I think it's discipline and also consistency of knowing what you're trying to go for and making those small steps, right? Every day. So discipline, consistency, definitely. And then, just looking at yourself as a whole person, not all the hats you wear, right? So for instance, all the hats, right? Just like you said, it's mom, it's wife, it's coach, it's daughter, it's, I can go on and on and on. And so making sure that those hats are integrated into who I am, right? And working on that constantly. And it does take discipline and consistency and a lot of hard work. It's a lot of hard work. We hear this all the time. It's always the work that nobody sees, right?
Correct. But that's how you build a great business.
Right. Yeah.
So one question, and I'm just curious, is if you're working, let's say that you've been working with this team every 60 days for the last 4 years, and they're growing and they're, breaking records every year and they have a great vision. But do your meetings start to get a little boring because there's no huge things to do anymore? It's just like little ticks along the way. Do you guys get on and it's like, hey, got this, and it's not that hour labor time? Does that work like that?
Yeah. So sometimes, right. And that's where I get a little nervous. I'm like, am I not bringing impact or right? I always bring it back to me, which it's not the case. No, things are going, well, but, and so I many times will go through, okay, what I know about this team, right? And it's a lot of things. It's not, just one. It's okay. Are there anything at the firm level that's happening? Is there anything new that I learned that I can bring back to them? Right. So it's that, but sometimes it's okay to be
a little boring.
Right. So sometimes it's okay. And when that happens, I make sure, because things always come up with a team, right? They're hiring new people. In order to grow, there's always decisions that have to be made. And so as soon as that happens, usually the second or third meeting, it's like, okay, we're back on track. Let's go. Right. We're ready to go. But you're right. It's okay to be, and then say, okay, hey, listen, rather than meeting next month, let's push it out to next quarter. If something comes up in the meantime, of course, please pick up the phone and be, more than happy. I would love that. But if not, we'll set up our quarter. And then at that point we talk about, okay, what's going on in the quarter? What are the goals? What are the initiatives? What are the challenges for this quarter? And how can I best support you?
Yep. It's awesome. Well, one of the things I find it's kind of interesting is, and I love what you just said, looking inward and saying, am I not bringing enough? And you went through I could see you mentally. It's probably a checklist that did I show them what's new? Did I show them this? Did I say, use this? And let's say all those are checked. What I find is the biggest challenge people run into in any business is they sometimes forget how they got where they are. So they do all this stuff, but then some of the things they used to do, they stop doing, and they don't even know why. It just happens, and you have to go backwards to fix that. So this has been amazing. My last question for you today is, and I have to bring you back on because we could take just teaming and make that one whole segment. So I will have you back on. I promise you that. And thank you for sharing so much. What's next for you?
Yeah, at the end of this year, going into next year, I want to go into my next tier of coaching. So that's I love to have that PC. I will have the PCC. Let me change my language next year. And so that's important to me. Being involved over the past few months here, as you know, with bringing in EXPs and integrating them into the firm. So it's been really fun because I get to do what I love best, which is discovery, which is asking questions for a full hour. I remember Dan saying to me, he goes, I'm really sorry. We're changing gears. We're making so many changes. He said, are you kidding me? For an hour and a half straight, all I get to do is ask questions and learn about this person. I've been thriving here.
Well, and think about that. You starting, that's basically the starting of your coaching.
Yes.
So you're at ground level now, and you can see, like, we have an advisor that we just hired 36 months ago. And I said, you're doing, $250,000 of revenue, and we'll get you to $1 million in 3 years. And the advisor actually hitting it. Mm-hmm. And to be able to do that, so rewarding for them, but so rewarding for you. So you're going to see them at ground floor, and these people are coming in with eyes wide open and ready to go.
And I can't wait to work, with them. And then, just over on a personal front is just constantly working on myself, right? To just be better mentally, be better, growing. And so therefore I could be a better mom, a better wife, a better coach. Right. Yeah. So just integrating that, being really present for my kids, my husband. Right. So that's always, part of that I'm working on every day.
Yeah. And by the way, for the people, when Daniela shares that, sometimes that can be overwhelming. Mm-hmm. You think about, like, oh my God, I'm trying to perform in every aspect, but you have to take it. You have to just be patient with yourself, and you have to make sure that each day you're just getting a little better. Yeah. And if you keep doing that in anything you're doing, you all of a sudden you stack those, and it's small steps, big wins.
That's right.
So, well, listen, congratulations on all you've accomplished. I always say this, the best is yet to come, and you keep bringing it every day. And I know there's not a time that I meet an advisor that you've been working with for a day or 5 years that doesn't say how thankful they are for the relationship they have with you, but not just the relationship, but the impact you're making is incredible. So you should put your head down at night as a person in your professional life and say, hey, I'm really doing great. And I know that you're pushing yourself, you're coaching yourself to continue to get better. And, proud of you. And proud of what you've accomplished.
Thank you. And thank you for the opportunity, because I couldn't have done it, without your guidance and support. So thank you.
No, you got it. So for people, small steps, big wins, Danielle is doing that on a day-to-day basis. And if you think about her journey of where she was to where she is, great work. And I can't wait to see where you are in the next 5 years. And I look forward to bringing you back on the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Got it. Thank you for listening to Small Steps, Big Wins. Please rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts.
All opinions expressed by the program participants are solely their current opinions and do not reflect the opinions their respective parent companies or affiliates or the companies with which the program participants are affiliated. Investments or strategies mentioned in this program may not be suitable for you, and you should make your own independent decision regarding them. This material does not take into account your particular investment objectives, financial situation, or needs, and is not intended as recommendations appropriate for you. You should strongly consider seeking advice from your own investment advisor. Securities and investment advisory services offered through qualified registered representatives of MML Investor Services, LLC. Member SIPC, 6 Corporate Drive, Shelton, Connecticut, 06484, telephone number 203-513-6000.